In this discussion, we're going to talk about line type and line weight. And typically we use those two things to provide some information to the person that's viewing the drawing. They can answer a lot of different questions, like is this particular feature visible or hidden? Does it indicate symmetry? Are we talking about a particular dimension of a part? So because of the different line weights and line types that we use, we can learn a lot about a particular drawing. So the four most commonly used line types are continuous, hidden, center, and phantom. We'll go through each one of those. Some lines, when we see these different lines, are more important than others. The thicker the line, the more important it is. So as we go through and learn a little bit more about drawings, you'll understand that the thicker the line is, the more important it happens to be. So the first type of lines we'll talk about are visible lines. Okay, and those are just continuous and thick lines. Okay, so your normal line, continuous, thick, that's a visible line. Hidden lines, those represent edges or boundaries that maybe cannot be seen. So if I'm looking at something in a particular view, but I know that there's something beyond that, some type of feature that's there, then I would represent that with a hidden line. And that's a dashed line, not quite as thick as your visible line. Then we have center lines, and typically those represent axes of symmetry, and those are a pattern of a long and then a short dash. And typically those aren't as important, so they're pretty thin. Phantom lines are used to represent moving parts or related parts, and those are a long, short dash pattern. And again, not so important, so those are thin. The next type of lines you'll see are dimension and extension lines, and those are used to show the particular size of an object. The dimension line is the one that's placed between two extension lines. It's going to have arrowheads on each side of it, and it indicates the direction and extent of that particular dimension. Those are solid lines with arrowheads on them, and the line weight again is thin because it's not so important. You might also see some cutting plane lines. Those are used to show when we take something and slice an imaginary cut through it to show a section view of an object. Those are typically thick phantom lines, and those are going to have arrows at each side. We'll talk about those more later on. You also have section lines. Those are used to show areas that we've cut through. Typically they're at a 45-degree angle. They're continuous or solid lines, and they're thin. Break lines, those are also used to show some imaginary breaks in parts. Typically they're some type of a connecting arc. Usually they're continuous and they're thick. So let's go through and look at some different line types. So which of the following would be a visible line? That one right there in the center. That's your continuous thick line. That's a visible line. Which of the following is a hidden line? There we go. In the upper left, that dashed pattern, that is your hidden line. Which one of those represents a center line? Notice the difference between this top one has two dashes and the one here in the center only has one short dash. The one there in the center is your example of your center line type. Long, short, long. That's the pattern. Which one of those represents a phantom line? Bottom right, that's your phantom line type. Long, short, long, short, long is the pattern. Which one of those represents a dimension and extension lines? Well, that would be the one with the number and the arrowheads. Which one of those represents a cutting plane line? So remember, a cutting plane line shows us which direction we would cut through something, and then it also has arrowheads. So it would be that one in the upper left. That's our cutting plane line. The next one is section lines. Those show us where some material has been imaginarily cut through. And again, those are at the 45-degree angle lines there on the right. How about a break line? Well, the break line is typically arcs, so that would be the one there on the left.